following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Bock score from Nedick's at the Old Garden on 49th Street. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and we have a panel of folks to talk to the man himself. I will introduce them. David Hubler.
Good morning, good evening, whatever.
All right, Alan Blumkin.
Good evening, everybody.
How are you, Alan?
Okay. We're getting snow here tomorrow night.
Pardon me?
We're getting snow here tomorrow night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Is that fun?
You've had a hell of a winter.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
All of you are back east, and I'm out in California.
Yeah, I checked on David Nedick Friday just to make sure he was okay.
Oh,
because of those rains.
Friday.
Yeah.
We have George Case III.
Yep, I'm here too, and I agree with what Alan and David just said. We're expecting more weather, so, Ralph, you stay out there in the sunshine.
Well, it's been brisk, so how can I complain? It's brisk today. The sun is shining, but it's brisk. My friends are all wrapped up in snowballs, and I'm sorry for you guys, really and truthfully.
Oh.
It's not going to be too bad. We'll be finished with it half a day. I mean,
we're only
Yeah.
going to get about 35 inches or so no problem.
Yeah, somebody said that February was the shortest month in one way and the longest month in the other way.
Right. That's true. And Hal, I'm sure you know the same thing. I mean, it's certainly not baseball weather, but we get some of our worst storms in the East Coast in February.
That's true.
Well,
That's
let's
very true.
introduce the man called Hal. I will ask him, as I normally do, what's the score, Hal?
Well, tonight we're going to discuss Alan's favorite subject, the New York Knickerbockers.
Oh, my God.
Well, I'm sorry.
All right, yeah, I can deal with that. Okay.
They're on a one-game winning streak.
I know that, yeah.
About?
Yeah.
They broke an 18-game losing streak the other night.
Threatens to sell.
What offends me about the Knicks, above and beyond the terrible play that they have performed, has displayed this season, what offended me this week about the Knicks is they sent out their season ticket brochure for next season, and on the cover of the brochure, they had a picture of Kevin Durant. Now, wait a minute.
You're
Kevin Durant plays in Golden State. Now, they're talking about, we have all this free agent money, and we're going to lure Kevin Durant to New York. Well, wake me when that happens, because Kevin Durant is playing for a championship-caliber team, and he's not going to come to New York to rescue this dumpster fire, I don't think. I'd be amazed if that happened. But I thought that was so obnoxious of them to do that. At least, if you don't have a player to put on the cover, put the logo on the cover. Or put all the past players, the great players.
Yeah, Sweets Clifton. Put not Sweetwater
Clifton.
Clifton.
Don't put a player who's on another team.
Isn't that considered tampering?
In
baseball, it would.
Wake up Adam Silver. I don't know. But it seemed to me that was outrageous.
Yep.
I read something out here about
Durant. There's good news. There's good news tonight. There's good news. James Dolan
fallen
will
in love. Durant
to buy the team. James
Dolan.
Durant has fallen in love with the idea of playing in New York.
No, wait a second. What was Hal saying? What were you saying about the...
Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, has said he will entertain bids to buy the team.
Aha.
So that would be a good thing, right?
Yes,
yeah, they've been valued at $4 billion, which is the highest, believe it or not, the highest in the league.
Well, it's a New York franchise.
Yeah, I know that,
right.
Yeah.
That's the reason for that. But they have been an embarrassment. They really have been an embarrassment. We've had 2 decades of terrible basketball since the end of the Patrick Ewing era. We have had 20 years of really bad basketball. And it's just offensive to me that they do nothing to improve this franchise. they seem like they're on a treadmill to oblivion.
As long as they sell out and all the seats are filled, they don't care. Like the Giants, the football Giants, and the until Parcells got there. Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of people who think, and Alan is probably one of them, that they're tanking, that they want to get one of those top draft choices, 1, 2, or 3 draft choices. The worst 3 teams in the league each have a 14% shot at the number 1 pick, and the number 1 pick will be the 2 kids out of Duke, Zion Williamson, and the other kid, R.A. Barrett or Garrett or whatever his name is. So I think they're angling to get one of those picks, and that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the league. It's embarrassing for the franchise. You got to go out there and give some competitive games. Play the game, you know. That's why I was amazed the other night when they beat the Atlanta Hawks. They led from beginning to end, and they beat the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the Atlanta Hawks are not some wow team, but still, they managed to win a game, and that was good. That was a good thing. But they had lost 18 in a row. I mean, that's terrible. There's no excuse for that. And,
how do you figure they have a 14% chance? If you have 3 teams competing, you should have at least a third, 1/3 chance.
You got to talk to the commissioner about this. They change the draft rules every year with the ping pong balls. I don't know, but I do know that there are 3. That the worst 3 teams each will have a 14% chance at the number 1 pick. That's what I know. I don't know how they're going to work it out, but that's the rule that they're operating under this season.
Well, it's a race between the Knicks, Cleveland. The Chicago Bulls have also fallen on hard times ever since Jordan left, and the Phoenix Suns. Yeah.
Maybe it's the number of ping pong balls that are in the tub.
Another thing, after they had lost 18 in a row, no New York franchise, none in the history of New York sports has ever lost 18 in a row until now. Now they lost 18 in a row. They finally win a game, and suddenly they find themselves a half a game ahead of Phoenix in this battle for the worst record in the league. So, I mean, that's really...
Yeah, they got hot in the All-Star break comes in.
Well, they had the All-Star break. Yeah, there were no Knicks in the All-Star game.
I know, yeah, but I'm saying just as soon as they got hot with the 1 win.
Yeah, I know. You have to wonder about how Walt Frazier is their broadcaster, one of their broadcasters on TV. And night after night to watch this desperate team, this terrible team that he once led to 2 championships, it must rip him up. I'll tell you, I haven't had a chance to talk to him, but it must just tear him up to watch the team that he played for and became a Hall of Famer, to watch them play the way they have. It's just embarrassing.
Well,
that said,
thank God for the memories of his teams, because
no question. That said, we should not ignore the fact that there were 2 important stories in sports today. We lost an icon, New York icon. Don Newcomb passed away at the age of 92. Great pitcher for the Dodgers. I said to somebody tonight, I don't understand why he's not in the Hall of Fame. He was a sensational pitcher. He was a dominant pitcher.
I can give you. I did a dissertation on this a bunch of years ago at Sabre National.
And
you think he belongs in the Hall of Fame?
No, I don't think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think he was the player. I did a presentation 30 years ago on players who lost time to being in the military during Korea. And he was drafted into the Army after 1951 and missed 2 seasons where they won pennants. And he was very bitter about being drafted because contemporaries of his, like Robin Roberts and a few others, never got the call. And he thought it was racism that when he was drafted into the Army for 2 years, he loses approximately 30, 40 victories because those 2 teams won pennants. And the 53 team won 105 games. In 54, he comes out and he has a mediocre year. He was 9-8.
What about?
And I don't know whether it was a lack of
MVP in 1 season.
Yeah, and then great seasons of 55 and 56, and then after Yogi took them out with the two home runs in the 56 series, he became an alcoholic.
You hold that against him? If you took out all the alcoholics,
no, but basically also his World Series record was 0-4 with a 7.59 ERA. And fair or not, the people blamed him for losing the last game in 1950 and then coming out of the Bobby Thompson game in 1951.
No, you know who you blame? You don't blame him. I talked to Branker about this many times. You blame Chuck Dressen, who kept going back and back to these guys.
Chuck Dressen was a terrible manager. On Facebook, I've done dissertations on him and the way he used and ruined pitchers.
That's right.
Okay, he ruined Joe Black after Black's rookie year by insisting that he learn an extra pitch, and Black's motion got so screwed up he never recovered from it.
He was the Billy Martin of his time. That's what I thought.
Yeah, in 51 he burned out the top relief pitcher was Clyde King, and he burned him out by overuse.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, I mean, I just feel that
these are people who dig, like us, who dig into this.
Here's
people like us who dig into this stuff.
Here's how I
the people that don't dig deeply into this stuff don't understand this.
When I watched a player and I feared him playing against my team, I consider that Hall of Fame caliber. And every time I saw Newcomb pitch against the Giants, who were my team, I was scared. He scared me because he was a big hulking guy, and he threw a hell of a pitch, a fastball that really was a zinger. And in my mind, the fact that he swept the Cy Young and the MVP in 1956, that's a substantial accomplishment.
But that was his last good year. He fell off the table very, very quickly. From what I understand, he had marital problems. He had a whole bunch of things going on. When Barrett took he got bombed in the last game of the 1956 World Series, he just started drinking heavily. But he overcame that, became a counselor, an alcoholic counselor for years and years and years. But you have to dig deep into this stuff to understand all things. Also, in 1950, September 1950, he became the last pitcher that actually really tried to pitch a doubleheader when Schotten was managing them. They won the first game, pitched a complete game, and they pitched 6 or 7 innings in the second game.
What I remember is that he scared me. He scared me for my team, and that's my measurment.
And he was a great hitter. Also, I think
he was a great hitter, great home run, a lot of home runs.
Yeah, Dressen made a mistake in the Thompson game by not putting Campanella back at home plate. He played Rube Walker back there because
he was hurt. Campanella was hurt.
Well, Campanella, the only thing he couldn't do was go after pop flies, and Polo Grounds had a big pop fly area.
Well, that's why Rube Walker caught.
Yeah, but Campanella knew how to settle Newcomb down.
Well, he couldn't play, though. He was hurt. That's why he didn't play.
They said he could have played. The Dressen said if they played Nebbits Field, because there wasn't much ground to cover there, he would have played him.
But they didn't play in Nebbits.
But they didn't play him, no.
At any rate,
basically because his peak was very short, compounded by the alcoholism, compounded by the 2 years of the military.
Sandy Koufax's peak lasted about 5 years, right?
Yeah, but
it wasn't anything like Newcomb's. Sandy's was absolutely unbelievable.
He was totally dominant.
Totally dominant.
Yeah.
Newcomb was a short period, though. I agree with you. He was totally dominant, but it was a short span. And so it was Newcomb's a short span.
Yeah,
I don't want to argue. I don't want to have an
argument. But Koufax was more in the limelight.
I'm curious about what you guys think of the signing of Manny Machado for 10 years and $300 million.
Somebody on Facebook put that the Padres are going to regret that very soon.
The richest contract in professional sports, $300 million for 10 years.
Yeah, the White Sox fans are all pissed off because he didn't go there. But he seems to be a player that does not feel comfortable in playing for contending teams.
Well, I mean, he was in the World Series last year.
Yeah, well, that's not because of him.
Yeah, that was by accident. He was traded to the Dodgers. But I think Alan's right. I think it's a big mistake. I think that they're throwing good money away, and I don't think it's going to help that team very much anyway.
He has an opt-out after 5 years.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
George can weigh into this because George's father played Major League Baseball. I'm sure your dad ran across certain players who were very comfortable playing for lousy teams.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of that, over the years. Matter of fact, Alan, I mean, my dad's Washington teams, other than 2 years, I mean, they were in the basement, and a lot of good players. I mean, really good players. Mickey Vernon and Cecil Travis. I mean, along with my dad and some others. And I mean, that's just unfortunate that you do have some great players that play for lousy teams. That's just part of it. Now, I do want to chime in on one thing here, though. We're talking about Machado. Now, living in the Philadelphia area, I mean, everybody thinks that the Phillies had a shot at Harper, and now they're saying, well, yeah, but the Phillies are going to have to ante up more because they want to have even a bigger contract than Machado has. So
didn't Philadelphia offer more? They offered more than Washington did. I think.
Well, they might have, more. David. I mean, I'm just saying that Washington offered $300 million, right, and Harper turned it down.
Right.
So now Machado signs for $300 million, and so now, they're saying that Harper's going to get more. Now, I mean, the whole thing just blows my mind. This kind of money is just, play money to me. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, somebody posted that Mike Trout will make more money in his first 5 games this season than Mickey Mantle made in his entire career.
Well, you know what, Alan? I mean, I as you know, I mean, I'm old school. I mean, when the guys are being paid, like Mantle and DiMaggio and Williams, I mean, the usual $100,000 a year, and everybody's screaming about, how much money those ball players are making, and DiMaggio, and now you look at these guys making hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, to me, I just find it hard to believe. I mean, if all of us, if you look down you go to any ball club, any ballpark, and you talk to the fans, that entire stadium might not be making $300 million per year. I mean, for a contract. I mean, that's just absolutely crazy to me.
Well, the minimum is now $562,000.
Exactly. 550-some thousand for an unproven rookie. I mean, that's the minimum, and that's what they're getting. I mean, it's just, to me, it's out of control. Now I understand, they want to try to rein it in a little bit, and they're talking about, well, how much money Major League Baseball has and the owners and the billions and billions and billions of these ball clubs. But somebody's got to pay the price, and the price is being paid, as far as I'm concerned, by the fans. I mean, the fans are being priced out of these games. I mean, that's why minor league baseball, if you take fans, you say, I can't go to a major league ballpark anymore with my family. I can't afford it. And so they go to a minor league game.
Adam Wainwright of the Cardinals.
Minor leagues are jumping on them. They're up in their admission and all the food that goes with it as well. It's
absolutely.
Ryan Wainwright said because of this so-called free agent freeze is that after the CBA ends after 2021 that there may be a strike. I think most people's attitude is if they want to strike, let them this time. There's not going to be any big outcry like there was in 1994.
Well, I think you're right, Alan. I think, from my perspective, the fans are getting they're getting the shaft on this whole thing. And when they got to pay extra for seats and they got to pay all these crazy prices for the stadium concessions and parking and tickets and all this kind of stuff, I don't think they're going to cry about ball players going on strike that are making $300 million.
No.
Marvin Miller.
By the same token, I think that Machado's signing really stops the talk of collusion. And it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't collude to sign Machado. And if they're still going to cut down on the length and time of contracts that are out there, there's still a lot of free agents out there, unsigned folks. And baseball doesn't want another lockout, another strike, another walkout, whatever you want to call it. I think, as Alan says, people are going to once and for all say, this is bullshit. We got, they've held us captive long enough. They've already, in the name of money and greed, canceled the World Series. And George will be the first to tell you, and David will be the second to tell you, that the World Series is what kept going during the war, and how great that was, and how the baseball couldn't be shut down. It could be shut down for greed. Couldn't be shut down for war, but it could be shut down for greed. That's bullshit. And the fans are someday going to wake up, and the goose that laid the golden egg will be dead. That's my
Ralph, that's what I think. I mean, to me, there's some warning signs there. When you look at, they're talking about Major League attendance starting to drop. I mean, that's to me is an indication. I mean, fans are moving away, and you got fewer and fewer kids that are playing the game. They're going to say, hey, I want to be a basketball player or a football player or a soccer player, whatever it is. Baseball has lost it because the young kids are just not playing the game the way they used to in this country. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it is in the world.
That doesn't negate the fact that because of international stuff, that the talent level they're not getting enough talent or this, that, and the other thing. The shame is that it isn't in this country, and the real shame is the African-American percentage of African-Americans playing is lower than it was since any time in the 50s, and that's crazy as far as that.
Well, no, it is. I mean, baseball is doing very well internationally. I mean, the Caribbean, Japan, the Far East. You're looking at that. But as far as American participation, the African Americans and the Caucasians, there are fewer and fewer. The kids are doing other things. They're either playing other sports or they're sitting home and playing on their computers and laptops and cell phones and video games and all that kind of stuff. And to me, baseball has a problem. And Manfred might not say, hey, look, our revenues are higher and blah, 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 they ever been, but there's going to be a time of reckoning. I mean, I'm just saying it as an old baseball guy, there's going to be a time of reckoning when fans are not going to shell out the big bucks to come and watch guys that are making tens of millions of dollars and they can barely afford to put food on the table for their families.
Marvin Miller, who was the father of free agency, always would say, they're never going to write a contract that they can't afford. So, I mean, I've never taken a look at the books of any major league team, but do you think for a moment that the San Diego Padres are going to go to household finance for a loan to finance this?
No, they won't, Hal. I agree with you. Absolutely not. They can afford it. But my point is, what I'm saying, at some point in time, the revenue stream is going to start to dry up for these clubs, and they're not going to be able to afford those kind of contracts. Now they can, and I've always said along, on these lines, it's the billionaires paying the millionaires. That's what's going on.
Well, it's the revenue sharing that they introduced at the MLB. The revenue sharing will keep a low-performing team not competitive, but have some money to spend on, now not in the Manny Machado category, but a lower level, they have the money to hire good free agents.
Right.
Because they get the revenue shared. Even if they finish last, they get it's like, the World Series shares. Only it's for the whole
I think, David, there was just an article, I think, and Alan, maybe you saw it, Ralph, I think it was on today on Facebook. I mean, something about ball clubs today are going to make something like $100 million before they even open the gates for the first ball game.
Yeah, that's probably.
Oh yeah, I can believe that.
Because of revenue sharing and all the kind of stuff that they do. That's how they can afford, these contracts. On the other hand, if they start looking and say, hey, I used to have a revenue stream where I was able to sell a luxury box or all these concessions, and all of a sudden, the price of television commercials come down, the price of fans saying, hey, I'm not going to go to your stinking ball game because I can't afford it. Then the owners are going to have to, wake up to the fact, hey, maybe we got to do something to try to correct this because it's out of control right now. And I don't begrudge the players. I've said this all along. If I was playing today and somebody offered me one of these crazy contracts, my question would be, where do I sign?
You're exactly right, George.
They're not as much interested sometimes in the butts in the seats, but the people who subscribe to all the different packages to bring the games in on television and radio, and they make big bucks from that, and they're going to smaller, more intimate parks where they don't have to draw 50,000. Some of the reason is the price of the individual tickets, but they're drawing revenue not only from TV and radio, but how about the gift shop and the different.
Well, I think agents have made a very big difference in this because it also excuse me. It also becomes a competitive thing. Like Manny Machado just signed for $30 million a year for 10 years. So Boris is probably telling Harper, you're better than him.
Right.
Okay, and basically, because I remember years ago when Ricky Henderson became a free agent with the A's, and he wanted a contract that was the top of the line contract. So they gave him $3-something million a year for 4 years. I mean, this is like 30 years ago. This was a major deal back then. And so Ricky Henderson was on the top of the world, the highest paid baseball player in the major leagues. And then I think Minnesota, of all teams, gave Kirby Puckett a bigger contract by a few bucks over what Henderson had signed for. So then, Henderson got pissed off, and it becomes a whole ego thing. Well, if that guy got whatever, and I'm better than him, and the agents have them convinced that they're Babe Ruth or Walter Johnson, it happens like that. And when you go if you go to arbitration hearings, the club tries to make you feel like you can't hit 200, and the agent is saying this guy's another Babe Ruth. And arbitration.
Absolutely. Hal, what say you?
Arbitration hearings cause very, very bitter feelings. So teams try to avoid that these days.
Yep.
But it's always up. The ARB process is always up from the day one. It's always up the contracts.
Yeah, well, it's like that saying that some of these economists like to use: a rising tide raises all boats.
Yeah.
You don't see any ball player losing money from one year to the next because he had a poor year. And the minute you see players whose record might be 5-17, and they get a raise the next year of several $1 million. Even if they go to arbitration, there's a possibility that the arbitrators will give this guy the money he's asking for. Nobody ever loses. Nobody ever comes back down. And that's why that's an artificial basement there. So
and all these contracts, multi-year contracts that the players either hurt all the time or stinks all the time. You can't get rid of them, and you still have to pay them forever.
Yeah, look at Ellsbury.
Yeah.
He's a classic example. He's going into his third year of being injured. It's the world's longest DL.
And Cespedes on the Mets, he's always hurt. Yeah.
And right, but the teams have insurance, so if players get hurt after a while. I don't know exactly how that works, but insurance companies pay the salaries.
And then the insurance companies raise the rates if this happens too often, and they pass it along to the fans.
Well, indirectly.
The Orioles, no, David, you're down with the televised Orioles games. Chris Davis, who hit 168 last year, they owe him money through 2037.
Yeah, that's right. He had one good year. And
the Mets are paying Bobby Bonilla till the end of time.
Well, that's no one's fault.
I know, yeah. It's the stupidity of negotiating these contracts like that.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Well, it's like George says, if you get a contract like that, you sign it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and, it's tax deferred, too. So Bonilla might have gone through that money because of taxes if he got it at that time. That was a good deal for both teams. He freed up some money for the Mets. I don't like to see the Mets throwing away money, but what's that, a couple of $1 million a year? Guys are paying tip money for that.
Yeah, but you're paying a lot of money when you're getting nothing for it.
But what you got was what you got, too. You're right. They didn't have to pay that upfront money. So
they made the deal. They negotiated a deal.
And they had the money to put in to get interest all those years before paying Bonilla.
That's right.
How much money have the Mets wasted on Cespedes these last few years?
Well, it may not be a waste. He's scheduled.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Back. First of all, he took him to a pennant the first time, and secondly, he's not done. The Mets are in pretty good shape. They keep getting stronger as the things go on. They signed a shortstop, didn't they, Hal?
Yeah, the wrong shortstop. Machado was available, at the time.
Were they going to put that money? Were they going to put that money out for Machado?
No, you and I both know that.
No, I wish they'd signed Bryce Harper.
Yeah, but again, are they going to pay $30 million for Bryce Harper?
Well, are they going to invest $30 million? Because
not on top of the $25 million they're paying Cespedes.
Well, it's New York, the biggest market, and if they looked at it as an investment, you pay a guy, he brings you a World Series or two. The revenue.
You remember Jason Bay? Pirate rookie. Then he went to Boston, had a terrific year, and the Mets signed him for 4 years, $65 million. He couldn't do anything, and they released him.
That's true, but you win some, you lose some, and
basically,
it's a gamble.
Yeah,
right.
You predict. You hope you can predict, but you can't. So, injuries happen. You never know. I mean, David Wright was a star, and then he got hurt, and then he can't play anymore. It's one of those things. You can't. It's a roll of the dice when you negotiate a fat contract. Alex Rodriguez got a fat contract from the Yankees.
Yeah,
they regretted, but it happens.
They regretted it in the end, but they didn't regret it all the years. Yeah. But they did.
And they did some winning with Alex Rodriguez too.
They won a World Series with Alex Rodriguez.
Yes.
So they
they're not
complaining.
Yeah.
And they were hoping that he would break the home run record and bring the record back to the Yankees. That was one of the reasons they gave him such a long contract, because he was really hitting home runs at the time. And,
well, you could too if you were taking the stuff that he was taking.
Well, then I might have done it.
and he opted out. And they were bidding against themselves. Yeah.
Well, there's the age-old argument in my head. When the Yankees got him, he was he had more range at short than Jeter. He was the best fielding shortstop in baseball. If he'd have stayed at short, on the field, maybe not Jeter's ego, maybe not the clubhouse, maybe not whatever. On the field, I think they would have been a better team. And if I remember correctly, David Hubler kind of agreed with me on that. Am I correct?
No, I don't think so. Because I thought First of all, I don't know how well Jeter could have played third, and Rodriguez did a fairly good job at third when he's moved over there. I think the combination that they had was just the right way with Jeter at short and A-Rod at third, and he didn't seem to complain about moving over at all.
No, he didn't, but he had some bucks coming in.
Jeter would have probably been disgruntled if they try to move him.
Right.
That's another question, disgruntled. Do you think there are players on the Padres who will be disgruntled at the fact that Manny Machado is making $30 million this year and they're not?
Oh, yeah. I think so. He better take him out to dinner an awful lot.
Well, they gave the Padres last year gave Eric Hosmer, who was a first baseman for the Royals for a number of years. They gave him a contract, big 8-year deal at whatever. But it's not as big as Machado's. But supposedly what this is saying, and somebody put that down, that the San Diego, who is not exactly a financial powerhouse, gives Machado this kind of deal. It means all these teams that supposedly collect the money and don't spend it can afford these one or two of these types. I know the Pirates don't.
Of balancing the table.
The Pirates won't ever spend that kind of money on a free agent.
Well, there are a lot of teams that don't spend that kind of money. There are a lot of them. I mean, you could go up and down the standings, and you could find teams in every division that are not invested in high-priced players. But they play the game. That's it.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, we've talked about this before, but isn't it a universal problem in sports, all sports, not just baseball, basketball, but tanking at the end of the year to get the higher draft choice? And is there something that can be done, a long-term solution to balancing the teams, but discouraging, which it really is a blight to the fan if your team is tanking and you're paying good money to see them. Can anything be done? Is there some sort of solution been proposed, Hal?
Not that I know of, and it is a universal problem because the worst team gets the first choice in an effort to improve their prospects. So if I'm the worst team, I get the best choice. I'm going to be the worst team. I'm going to see to it that I can be worse than you so that I can have the first pick. And that's a bad situation. How do you solve it? I don't have a clue. Maybe you flip a coin or something. The NBA has this ping pong ball arrangement that I've never quite understood, but that results in some of the poor teams drafting a little lower than some of the better teams. It's a toss of the coin kind of thing. I don't know if there's a real legitimate solution. I've thought about this quite a bit, and I have come up empty, frankly, and I'm curious about what you guys think.
I don't think this should be allowed to, for the first couple of rounds in baseball, be allowed to trade the first draft picks. All three of us, I don't know about hockey, but baseball, football, and basketball, you can trade picks.
Right.
So a
lot of them are doing that, Alan.
Yeah, the bad teams.
A lot of them are doing that.
The bad teams that don't have judgment, well, I'll trade your number one pick for this over-the-hill veteran, or this veteran who's on the downside, and I won't get a number one pick for 5 years.
The Nets traded their future away.
I know, for Garnett and
the first-round draft choices for two used-up players, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, for the Celtics. They gave the Celtics picks for the years,
They paid the price. They're only now coming out of it.
Yeah, because these teams don't think in the future. They don't think in the future.
Well, then you're setting yourself up for trouble.
Exactly, yeah.
No, I think the NBA teams dog it right to the end, right to the playoffs. I think you watch some of these games; they're playing like they're playing in the All-Star game. No defense, run up and down the court, walk, take 5 steps, 6 steps, whatever. The refs don't call it, and it's a show. and it's all it is a show. And
the All-Star game,
playoffs, and then they wait a second, and then they get to the All-Star, they get to the playoffs, and then it's the only time they really play to win.
Exactly, yeah. But the thing is, I used to watch the NBA All-Star game years ago. Now it's that nobody plays defense, and there's 300.
Alan, Al's talking.
I'm sorry.
All-Star games have become a joke in all four sports as far as I'm concerned. When I was a kid growing up, the baseball All-Star game was a major, major event. And they've succeeded in reducing it to a meaningless exhibition. The hockey All-Star game has a round-robin, some kind of a round-robin arrangement. The other night with the NBA All-Star game, where they play no defense whatsoever, and neither do they do it in hockey. It's a joke. And the Pro Bowl, you're not allowed to blitz, and you're not allowed to do this, and you're not allowed to do that. Well, what's the point of having the game then? I don't see it. Those four All-Star games are, frankly, in my opinion, are a waste of time.
Well,
I want to just say one thing about that, Hal. I absolutely agree with you. I am bent out of shape completely about Major League Baseball All-Star Game because it was a very significant thing when it used to be which league is better, American League or the National League. It was a point of pride. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden now you've got, because of interleague play, and you've got this crazy thing that I saw last year, and I commented about it the other day. During the middle of the game, the ball players are mic'd up, for crying out loud. I mean, to me, if you're talking about a meaningless exhibition, that's showbiz. That's not baseball.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. No question. And all the glitz and hype that goes with it. You know, the home run derby and all these other nonsensical and they do it because the NFL's got that Super Bowl night, and that's what all of it devolves to. That this big show in the middle of the game, and in the NBA, it's all just walking, running up and down the court. And you're right, the Major League. Even when they had two, if you recall, there were a couple of years there in the 50s when they played two All-Star games a year. And even then, there was a tremendous amount of interest in those games. It's nothing like that today. Today, it's all a show.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely agree with you, David.
Absolutely agree with you. And there's one other factor. If in these All-Star games, these guys are playing trying to not get hurt, you can get hurt trying not to get hurt.
And, Ralph, some guys will even pass. They won't even play. I mean, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, a couple of these superstars said, I'm not going to play. I mean, in the old days, it was such an honor to be chosen for an All-Star game, to be a member of the National League or American League. I mean, that was the highlight of your career. And now
every team has to be. The player that shocked us all without playing, he said, if I ain't starting,
that's Gary Templeton.
You're absolutely
years
right.
ago when he was with the Cardinals. But the thing is also this nonsense of having every team represented is when it was 8 teams in the league, that was one thing. Now there's 15 teams in the league. Okay, and half the pitchers can't be used because they pitched the day before, the Sunday before.
Right.
Well, Satchel Paige.
Now I've been away from this as far as how the players are selected. Now, do they still have fan voting?
Yeah.
Where the fans were stuffing ballot boxes.
And then I think the managers pick. Or the rest of the players pick the rest of them, and there's always 1 or 2 roster spots at the end that get voted in by I don't know who.
Fan votes.
Yeah, fan votes.
Yeah. And you can vote as many times as you want.
Yeah, you don't have to register like you'd have to do for a normal election.
No, you just can send, go.
They used to have those cards, those punch cards.
Punch cards, right?
And people would pick up 100 of them. Take them, to some place where they used to have automatic punching. They punch through. I used The rare times I used to vote back then is I always voted for guys who were released to run DL or whatever because I thought the whole thing was farcical.
All right.
Well, years ago,
guys,
the managers used to pick all of them.
Yeah. But they did that
really
after the Cincinnati thing in the mid-'50s.
Yeah.
But Cincinnati and Fort Frick, because Musial was the only one that wasn't from the Reds. And Fort Frick replaced Gus Bell with Willie Mays and Wally Post with Henry Aaron. And they took it away from the fans for a dozen years or so. And Bully Kuhn gave it back to the fans.
Right. That was, 61, I think.
No, Bully Kuhn was in the early 70s. He gave it back.
Oh, I meant
yeah.
When they took it away from the fans.
No, it was right after the Reds thing in 57. 58, they started with the, they started with the players and managers doing it. You couldn't vote for a player. A player couldn't vote for any teammate.
All right, let me go around the horn because we're going to close it out. Any unspoken thoughts, George Case?
Well, no, I've enjoyed this discussion. We got away from the NBA. I just wanted to put my old basketball hat on because I remember when you talk about the Knicks, Alan, and how when the Knicks were such a powerhouse. I mean, when I was playing ball in high school, college, the teams with Sweetwater Clifton and Gallatin and Carl Braun and McGuire, and then you get into the Willis Reed and Frazier and Bradley and those DeBusschere. I mean, they were great teams. And for me, I've lost interest, to tell you the truth, in the NBA completely. I just don't like it. You guys are talking about running up and down the court. There's no defense. I mean, I've always watched NBA when I was a kid, basketball, and say, hey, it really gets exciting the last 2 minutes of the game because they're playing for something. Before that, it's like who can throw them up the furthest. And now it's even worse. I mean, you see guys driving the lane and doing all kinds of stuff that they used to create plays like Walt Frazier and Pearl and those guys. Now what they do, they drive the lane and they kick it out to a three-point shooter so he can throw one up from 30 feet.
Right. They're thinking of extending that, making it a longer
half court.
Either that or 4 points or whatever. I heard something about.
Oh God.
Well, they got all the specialists now. I mean, that's what they look at in college. See who can shoot. Whether or not they can play ball, but if they can shoot, they stick them on the team and let them fire away for 3 points. So, I mean, I got away talking about the NBA because I remember the way it used to be. I just don't like the game today the way it's played, just like I don't like baseball the way it's played.
All right. How about you, Mr. Hubler?
Well, I echo what George had to say. I don't have any interest in the NBA anymore. I still enjoy watching college basketball, but the NBA just leaves me cold. I used to watch it right down to the end of the playoffs, the championship round, and I couldn't tell you who won the NBA championship last year. It doesn't interest me at all.
Okay, Alan Blumkin.
Okay, I agree with George and David. On basketball, I think the three-point shot has been very detrimental to the game.
Okay.
It took me a while to come to this, but they're right. George is right. I've been watching college games recently, and they kick it out. Even at that level, they kick it out from underneath to a three-pointer, and the guy throws up a brick most of the time. But, it's really, really, and the playoffs in both basketball and hockey are interminable. 2 months to, they have 16 teams.
All these teams.
And every series is 4 out of 7. So it goes on forever. And with baseball, George and I had a communication on the messenger back and forth, is that the analytics are not helpful. Sabre is running an analytics convention. They do this every March in Phoenix, and they listed the last newsletter I got Friday. They listed a bunch of the topics, and I had no interest in sitting through 45 minutes of any of them. And the latest fad there is spin rotation on pitches.
Yeah,
put that with the
analytics guy Sunday.
Yeah, that's right.
Talking about.
You can put this with the launch angle and exit velocity. And I think it's really, as George said, you use your eyes. You see whether a player can hit a high pitch or a low pitch or an inside or an outside, whether the pitcher has control or not. You don't need all these damn numbers and these damn calculations. And, maybe I'm showing my age, but it's really, really the whole analytics thing in basketball, baseball, football, wherever you use it, I think has really done a detriment to the game.
I'm with you, Alan.
Okay, I've said my piece. Okay.
All right. Hal, why don't you close us out? It's been a great show.
Well, I agree 100% with what Alan just said. One of the things that attracted me to sports when I was a kid was that it was so unpredictable. You never knew what was going to happen next. Casey Stengel said, come to the ballpark, you'll see something you never saw before. And he was right. And to try to reduce the game to a mathematical formula, I think is detrimental to the sport. And I think they have hurt all the sports. I agree with Alan about the three-point shot. I understand why it was put in, but I think it's overused. And I watched last night my grandson's school, Virginia Tech. They heaved up 25 three-point attempts, and they made 3. And they lost the game by 8 points. So, I mean, if they were playing a regular game, they had a chance to win that game against the University of Virginia. And stuff like that goes on all the time. Ball players are swinging from their heels for home runs, and many times they're striking out. This was the first year of last season was the first season when we had more strikeouts than hits. That's ominous in my mind. That's an ominous signal that there's something wrong with the game. Now, how will we fix it, or how will they fix it? I have no idea. I wonder if they'll do it in my lifetime. But it's sad to see. I often tell my son, I was fortunate to live through the golden age of sports, in what I consider the golden age of sports, which was the 40s and 50s when I was growing up. And today, the version that they give us is not nearly as compelling as the games that I watched when I was a kid. In all sports.
Well, Hal, I agree with you. I agree with you, David. I agree with you, Alan. I mean, look, I'm an old baseball traditionalist, so that's my thing, and maybe we're all showing our age, but, I just can't get into the way the games are played today. I don't like it, and I'm with you, Hal. I echo your comments, and David and Alan, I'm with all of you as far as, what's happened to our lovely, tremendous sports. I mean, I grew up in what you want to call the golden age. I mean, from a personal point of view, I grew up in that. I mean, I knew those guys. I knew what they were. They were human beings, and they played. They loved it. But I can tell you for a fact that nobody was talking about launch angles. Nobody was talking about escape velocity. Nobody was talking about spin on a baseball. That's just not the way the game was played. And nobody was going to go up there and in baseball, if you had 2 strikes, you protected the plate. You didn't get up there and still swing from the heels and wind up striking out more than, like Hal said, more strikeouts than hits. I mean, that's bizarre to me.
DiMaggio has more home runs than strikeouts in a career.
Right. Hey, there you go, Ralph, exactly.
Not quite. It was 8. He had 8 more strikeouts than home runs.
Well, whatever it was close.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
yeah.
And you look at, I think I just saw a stat today, something about Stan Musial in his 20-year career, whatever, had a total of like 600 strikeouts.
Now, Williams had about 700, yeah.
Yeah, they get 200, 300 strikeouts in a season.
Yeah. I did a project for a friend of mine a few years ago on players he wanted to know batters that led the league in walks and strikeouts at the same year. So Babe Ruth was on there about 5 times. He'd strike out 85 times maybe and walk 150. Then in 2012, you have Adam Dunn walking 105 times and striking out 222 times.
We're talking about the strikeout king back then was Ruth with 85 strikeouts.
Yeah. I followed Rob Div very closely in the late 80s and early 90s. I thought he was exceptional because he struck out so much and hit so low. But he had turned out to be a pioneer, not an exception.
Yeah, Swish Nicholson, wherever you are.
He never struck out that much. Yeah.
All right, guys, great show. Thank you again. We'll do it same time. Alan, take us out with your...
Same bat time, same bat channel.
All right. Thank you, George, David, Hal, and Alan.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you,
Good night, everybody.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Comfortably Zone Radio Network. Hal Bock, it was great. Thank you again. The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.